Mike's been great. He's come in, will be more under center. There'll be some obviously pass and run concepts that we feel very comfortable with. They'll remain the same. We're still trying to play with some different tempos at the line of scrimmage. We'll continue to do those things. That's one thing that I noticed when Mike went to Colorado State, is adapting what we do to the personnel. And that's what we got to identify for him and his comfort level is, what are we going to be? We don't really know those answers right now. We're going to look at different personnel groupings to find out who our best 11 are, to put them on the field so we can be more productive. And that's what he's committed and we're committed to doing. Joe Cox, you see why Mike was so adamant about having Joe here. Very bright, very intelligent, a really good teacher, does a great job with our players. Really a good evaluator as far as recruiting is concerned, does a nice job on the recruiting front. So I think will be a very valuable member of our staff moving forward. And as we continue to evaluate our staff, looking at things, moving Bobby back to running backs, Wolf obviously is coaching offensive line, and Brian McClendon coaching receivers. You go back to 2018. In the last 15 years at South Carolina, we've averaged over 400 yards 3 times. One of those years was 2018. We averaged 425 yards. We averaged over 30 points a game, which has only happened 6 times in the last 15 years. And we averaged 150 yards rushing, which has only happened 6 times in the last 15 years. So that was a very productive year for us with those guys manning those jobs, and they did it very well. And Mike's been extremely pleased with the staff. Defensively, I've tried to hire Tracy Rocker before and finally was able to do it this time, but a guy that understands how we play. And, we got a certain teaching progression, but he's kind of grown up in our system and understands how we want to coach, whether it's 2-gap, whether it's 1-gap, and how we want to play blocks up front. So it's really good to have him on staff, and his experience for our staff and for our players is huge in the front 7, and has done an outstanding job in everywhere he's been as far as developing players, and that's what it's all about. Rod Wilson, a guy that I'm excited about, former Gamecock, former team captain, Super Bowl champion. I actually interviewed Rod our first year and was extremely impressed with him. And coached one more year at Charleston Southern, and then spent the last 3 years at Kansas City. Had some of the better special teams units in the National Football League, but a lot of experience. I'm working with the linebackers with him right now. We have a certain way we want to vernacular and verbiage and how we teach things. And so he's going through that right now. It has nothing to do with his expertise as coach linebackers. Believe me, he's going to be fine, but we just want to make sure we're on the same page, and he'll take them over after spring ball as we move into the fall. But excited about he's going to help us a lot on special teams, and Kyle Krantz and he are going to work together on special teams, and his experience and a lot of those things from a fundamental standpoint, but a schematic. Obviously, our rules are a little different from the National Football League in some areas, but to be able to adapt some of the things that he's had success with in the National Football League, I think will be huge for us. Drew Hughes is now our head of recruiting. He and Matt Lindsay kind of came up together as far as where they have been and crossed each other's paths. And I had Drew when I was at the University of Florida, did a fantastic job for me there. So it's been a really seamless transition for us as far as our day-to-day operation in recruiting, evaluation, and how we work, as far as the recruiting standpoint is concerned. So I'm really excited to have Drew back, and I've already kind of hit on Paul. Injury-wise for spring, some guys that will be out for the entire spring. Randricus Davis has a stress fracture. He had a rod put in his leg. He's had a lot of, unfortunate situations as far as injuries, continued to battle through. He's got a positive attitude as best he could have. So he will be cleared to probably be in some non-contact, 7-on-7, 1-on-1, the latter part of spring practice, but will not be in part of any contact. Colin Hill, who tore his ACL at Colorado State, Mohamed Kaba, who tore his ACL at Clinton High School, both will be out, as well as Spencer Easton-Riddle and Nick Muse with ACL injuries. J.J. Mbari and Dylan Wanham both have a congenital issue with their hip. We knew when we signed Dylan he was going to have surgery on his hip, but we had to shave the bone back in both situations, and they'll miss contact in the spring. And then Tyreek Johnson's had a sublux kneecap, which is very similar to the injury that Ortre Smith had. But all of those guys will be fine middle of April, 1st of May, to be ready for the summer program.